When Patrick first noticed the new housemaid standing quietly near the gate, he barely looked twice. She wore a faded yellow dress and carried herself with the caution of someone who had learned early that life rarely offered second chances. But there was something in her eyes, something tired yet hopeful, that lingered in his mind long after he drove away. Patrick was the kind of man people respected in public, a loving husband, a father of two, a businessman who donated to church projects and spoke softly during meetings. Yet hidden beneath that polished image was a hunger for excitement he had never learned to control. And that hunger was about to destroy far more than he imagined. Every Thursday evening, Patrick claimed he had late office meetings. His wife, Clara, trusted him completely. She would prepare dinner, help the children with homework, and wait for the sound of his car headlights at the gate. Sometimes she even stayed awake past midnight just to warm his food. But Patrick's meetings were lies. Across town lived Vanessa, a stylish woman who enjoyed expensive perfumes, designer handbags, and attention from married men. Patrick convinced himself it was only temporary fun. He often remembered his father once warning him, "A man who plays with fire believes he controls the flames until the flames learn his name." Vanessa's housemaid was named Aline. She was only 23, from a small village outside Kigali, and worked long hours for very little pay. She cooked, cleaned, washed clothes, and stayed invisible whenever guests arrived. One rainy evening, Vanessa left for a weekend trip, asking Patrick to check on the house while she was away. Patrick laughed at the request at first, but temptation has a strange way of disguising itself as coincidence. When he arrived, Aline offered him tea with trembling hands. That night, boundaries quietly disappeared. Patrick told himself it was an accident, just one weak moment. But guilt rarely stops people who refuse to face themselves honestly. Instead of staying away, he returned again the following week. Aline, lonely and emotionally vulnerable, mistook Patrick's attention for care. He asked about her childhood, listened to her struggles, and bought her small gifts. No one had ever treated her gently before. She didn't realize that some men learn exactly how to sound sincere while living double lives. Weeks turned into months. Patrick balanced two secret relationships while pretending to be a devoted family man. He became skilled at deleting messages, inventing business trips, and masking guilt behind expensive gifts for Clara. But secrets change people. Patrick became impatient at home. Small things irritated him. The children's noise, Clara's questions, even family dinners. Clara noticed the distance growing between them. One evening, she asked softly, "Is there something you're not telling me?" Patrick smiled and kissed her forehead, but his silence answered louder than words. Aline discovered she was pregnant on a quiet Tuesday morning. The tiny clinic smelled of medicine and bleach as the nurse handed her the test results. Her hands shook so badly, she almost dropped the paper. She sat outside under a jacaranda tree for nearly an hour, replaying every conversation Patrick had ever had with her. He had promised support. He had promised protection. But deep down, she already knew promises made in secrecy rarely survive daylight. When Patrick received Aline's phone call, fear rushed through him like cold water. He parked his car beside the road and stared blankly at the steering wheel while she cried on the other end. "What do we do now?" she whispered. Patrick had no answer. For the first time, the fantasy collapsed into reality. There was now a child involved, a living consequence no deleted message could erase. Vanessa discovered the affair accidentally. She noticed Patrick behaving strangely around Aline and eventually checked his messages while he showered. What she found shattered her pride more than her heart. "You got my housemaid pregnant," she screamed, throwing his phone across the room. Patrick had expected anger. What he didn't expect was humiliation. Vanessa wasn't grieving love. She was furious that she herself had become a victim of betrayal. At home, Clara noticed Patrick spending money recklessly. Unexplained withdrawals, late-night calls, sudden disappearances. The man she once trusted completely now felt like a stranger wearing her husband's face. One evening, while folding laundry, she found a receipt from a maternity clinic in his jacket pocket. Her stomach tightened. A quiet fear settled into her spirit, the kind of fear that arrives before painful truth. Patrick tried convincing Aline to stay quiet until he figured things out. But problems hidden in darkness only grow heavier. Aline struggled alone with morning sickness while continuing household chores. Sometimes she stood in front of the mirror, wondering how life had become so complicated. She remembered her mother once saying, "Never build hope on another woman's tears." At the time, she hadn't fully understood those words. Now they echoed painfully in her heart. Neighborhood gossip travels faster than the truth. Soon whispers spread among security guards, salon workers, and neighbors. People noticed Patrick's car frequently parked near Vanessa's house, even after their public fallout. Clara heard the rumors last. That is often the cruelty of betrayal. The world sometimes discovers your pain before you do. A close friend finally sat her down and gently revealed what people had been saying for weeks. That night, Clara waited in the living room with tears quietly streaming down her face. Patrick entered confidently, but the moment he saw her expression, he knew the walls had collapsed. "Tell me it's a lie," she whispered. Patrick opened his mouth, but no words came. Years of marriage stood trembling between them. In that silence, Clara realized the truth before he even spoke it. Their children began sensing tension immediately. The house grew colder. Meals became quieter. Laughter disappeared. Patrick learned too late that children may not understand adult problems, but they always feel emotional storms. One evening, his young daughter asked, "Daddy, why does Mommy cry when you leave?" The question pierced him deeper than any accusation ever could. Humiliated and furious, Vanessa decided she would not suffer alone. She contacted Clara directly and revealed every detail she knew. She even sent photos, messages, and hotel receipts. Patrick watched helplessly as years of carefully built respect collapsed within days. Friends distanced themselves. Relatives criticized him quietly behind his back. The reputation he had spent decades building was destroyed by choices made in secret moments. Despite everything, Aline suffered the most isolation. Vanessa fired her immediately. Her family back in the village condemned her without knowing the full story. Patrick provided money occasionally, but emotional support was absent. Pregnancy made her vulnerable in ways she had never imagined. She often sat alone in a small rented room, wondering how adults could create life so carelessly while leaving others to carry the pain. Clara finally asked Patrick to leave the family home temporarily. She spoke calmly, but her voice carried years of wounded trust. "I loved you honestly," she said, "but you kept feeding lies until our marriage could no longer breathe." Patrick packed a small suitcase that night. As he closed the gate behind him, he realized something painful. Sometimes people don't lose their families in one dramatic moment. They lose them gradually through repeated selfish decisions. Months later, Aline gave birth to a baby boy during a stormy night. The hospital lights flickered as nurses rushed through narrow hallways. When Patrick finally held the child, emotions collided inside him. Joy, guilt, fear, regret. The baby's tiny fingers wrapped around his thumb, innocent and unaware of the chaos surrounding his arrival. Patrick suddenly understood that children never choose the circumstances adults create for them. Patrick attempted reconciliation with Clara, but trust once broken is painfully difficult to rebuild. Therapy sessions, family meetings, and apologies followed, yet emotional scars remained visible. He also had to accept responsibility for Aline and the child publicly. The double life he once managed so carefully now stood exposed for everyone to see. There was no more hiding. Years later, Patrick often reflected on how quickly desire can destroy stability. He realized his downfall did not begin with the affair itself. It began the moment he convinced himself that private choices carried no public consequences. Aline eventually rebuilt her life slowly. Clara focused on healing and protecting her children. Vanessa moved on to other relationships, though bitterness still followed her. Each person carried scars from decisions rooted in dishonesty. Life has a way of exposing secrets, no matter how carefully they are hidden. Patrick once believed he could divide his heart into separate rooms without consequences. Instead, he shattered trust in every direction and hurt innocent people along the way. Moral of the story: hidden choices eventually become visible consequences. Betrayal may begin in secrecy, but its pain spreads publicly to families, children, and futures. Loyalty, honesty, and self-control protect relationships far more than temporary pleasure ever can.